hola, bienvenidos a todos. Welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the video title, we're just gonna get right into it today. I am in the midst of getting my hair ready to wash at 9:30 at night. Yeah, I got home late from clinical. My clinical day, I was at interpreter services, which I recorded a video because it was a very interesting experience. And I think I will upload like a little mini how my clinical week went video.
Yeah, I'm in the midst of getting my hair ready, as I said, because my vacation is right around the corner. Tomorrow is Friday, and I was planning to have my hair done by tomorrow because Saturday and Sunday, I literally have appointments like both days, and then I'm leaving at 5 in the morning on Monday. So it's, vacation is right around the corner, which I'm excited about.
But anyway, yeah, the video title really just gives you a clue on what I'm going to be talking about today, because I promised you guys that this was going to be an entire playlist. I'm not really going to be looking at y'all because I need to look at the mirror and make sure I'm not ripping out my hair. But first of all, the title is very clickbaity, and I did it on purpose. I'm a medical student with a mental health condition, not a mental health illness. That word illness, that phrase is very, very stigmatizing. And I actually correct people all the time when they say it. The other day, we just had a lecture on, what was it? On positive language to help people with substance abuse disorders. And we were being so careful about like how we address people. We don't call people smokers. We don't call people addicts, right? Like we don't use that terminology anymore when we're dealing with people who have substance abuse disorders. So I was like, well, keep that same energy for people with mental health conditions. So I had to like correct the speaker and say, hey, like don't use that phrase. I correct anybody, as I said, whether it's colleagues, whether it's faculty members, because I think that this just needs an update in our medical lexicon, the same way that we also no longer say mentally challenged, right? We say somebody who has a mental disability. We don't say the other word anymore. So the one that starts with an R, we don't say that anymore. So I just feel like, again, the word or phrase mental illness just needs the same type of adjustment. And first of all, it's not even just a matter of being sensitive about the terminology and it being stigmatizing. It's also just straight up incorrect, because an illness indicates that there is a state of baseline that has been strayed from. So if you go to a doctor because you suspect that you have a bacterial illness, they're going to give you what? An antibiotic. And the antibiotic is hopefully going to rid you of said bacteria and return you to baseline. So get your fever back to, 98.6, nothing above that. It's going to help you stop with, your shakes and your chills. It's going to get you back to a state of normal physiological peace. There is no such thing as baseline for mental health. Everybody's mental health is different. How everybody perceives their emotions is different. How they experience emotions is different. Why that is different for everybody. There's just too many factors to have a straight black and white baseline. That is why the DSM-5, which we are let me break down the acronym, because I hate when people do that. I hate when people give acronyms and then don't tell me what the heck the acronym means. But the DSM-5, I believe 5 is the newest version, is the Diagnostic Statistic Manual for Mental Health Conditions. And it's pretty much a whole encyclopedia type of manual that you would quite literally flip to the condition or the disorder that you think a person has, and it has a whole list of criteria that this person has to meet to be legally medically termed as having said condition. So I will get into that whole process later of what it is actually like to be diagnosed, the importance of it, why people do it, why people don't do it, just kind of all the ins and outs of that process in another video. But the whole point is that the DSM-5 is a huge list of categories, or not categories, a huge list of factors that you would have to apply or that would have to apply to you in order to be labeled as having a mental health condition. So that just goes to show you that, again, it's not a clear cut and dry, because you are sad for 6 hours in a day, or whatever sadness even is to you, that equals, major depressive disorder. No, it is not that simple. I also feel like most people, yeah, I'm gonna say that most people have some type of like mental and emotional imbalance even if they don't necessarily address it. What do you think those people who like me, even me, right? I'm a religious person. What do you think religion does for people? What do you think having strict routine does for people, right? People who go to the gym all the time. Like, a lot of that has to do with your mental health, not just your physical health, your mental and emotional health. So, you have people who do these practices constantly to keep themselves in balance. So again, I think that just goes to show you how there is no baseline, and how it always is kind of like a gray area when it comes to mental and emotional health. So I just think that using the word illness just doesn't make sense. I also think that, kind of going back to the stigma of that word, as I said, everybody deals with mental health challenges in some way or another. And I just feel like it doesn't make sense to create a group of like other, right? People with mental health illnesses are these like other categories of people. Like, no, I'm a normal person just like you. I deal with stuff just like you. The only difference is, again, how maybe I perceive it, how I perceive a situation, how I internalize a situation. That's what makes it different. Not the fact that I'm like some walking, talking freak. So I just really, I'm like very, very passionate about that. I don't know if you can tell. So that's why this first video is going to be more of like an educational video, to kind of like not walk around, but to go into depth about like how I perceive mental health conditions, and like what that means to me and all that good stuff. And hopefully it's not too like repetitive and redundant, and I'm kind of like repeating a lot of the same things, and that you're able to take away something from this video, especially if you are a person who does not have a mental health condition like diagnosed. If you do have loved ones with them and you just have never really thought about it, right? Like, you've never really thought about like how you can show up in their life to like make this an easier time for them. Like, I don't know, whatever. I just hope you take away something from it, okay? Even if it's one little fact. And matter of fact, I challenge you to comment down below something that you learned from this video and that like you're gonna remember, or just that you thought was interesting at least. I would love to hear it. So let's just get right into it. So first of all, I think that mental health is a spectrum, as I said. There's actually this model called the diathesis stress model. I used to be a psychology major, y'all, if you didn't know that. So the diathesis stress model is essentially saying that everybody has some type of limit before they teeter over into the realm of like mental instability. And that some people, that threshold is lower, and it's because of genetic factors. There are a lot of mental health conditions that are genetic, such as schizophrenia. So that's actually why on some medical questionnaires, that's like a main health diagnosis that's asked about in terms of mental health. So it's like some people's thresholds are lower because of genetic components, but the thing that triggers it, and this is in relation to epigenetics if you are a biology major, which I'll define that next, but there's something that triggers these genetics to turn on, and those are your social and environmental factors. So it's like you were here, and then because of these social factors, you go above your threshold, which was already low compared to maybe somebody else, like your friend. And I said that this is similar to epigenetics because epigenetics is the same principle of that, like you kind of have these genes that get triggered and turned on to express like typically deleterious genetics. So same principle of you already have this kind of encoded and ingrained in you, and then it switches on. I don't even think that encompasses all of like mental health expression. While some people, yes, there is like a significant genetic component, and they are more likely to succumb to certain stressors and pressures than other people. I just think in general, like you never truly know the extent of your mental until you're kind of in a position that consistently stresses you out. And I think a perfect example of that is being in medicine, right? Like how many times do we hear people who, unfortunately resort to no longer being a part of this world, as a result of like how stressful medicine is. We hear about it all the time. I think just the other day, there was not the other day, but at the beginning of the school year, so this past summer, there was this huge not a campaign, but there was this huge like flux of posts in relation to a resident who, once again, kind of opted to no longer be a part of this world. I have to say it that way because YouTube is like very, very sensitive about certain subjects, and I wouldn't be surprised if this video got flagged in general. But there was this whole post about that, and there were physicians coming out and other advocates coming out with these long lists of people that we have lost just in the duration of that summer. And I think that just once again speaks volumes of that. Mental health is a spectrum, and it is a very, very like thin line. It's not a clear cut and dry, you are a normal happy person versus, you are a generally sad person. Things happen and it tests your ability. And if you're not used to navigating your emotions, or even if you are used to navigating your emotions and this is just a significantly stressful situation for you, you can't predict how you're going to react. And that's really also why I can't stand people who are very, very judgmental about how people react to things. And you'll hear me talk about this more later as well. That's more specific to the diagnosis that I have. But I just feel like you can't tell somebody how to react to how you treat them. You can't tell somebody how to react to a situation because you're not them, right? You don't get to invalidate their emotions. Now, sometimes the response is not always justified, right? Somebody hurting doesn't give them the right to hurt you. But I just always thought that was weird, that you could put something out into this universe. You could say something and then be surprised that you triggered that other person and that they respond back to you in a negative way. I am a firm believer in stand on what you say. I tell people this all the time. If you're offended by something I said, 9 times out of 10, I meant to offend you. It is very rare that I say stuff without awareness because I do have a mental health condition. So I understand, like I spend a lot of time in my emotions. Me and my emotions are best friends and enemies all at the same time. So I'm hyper conscious about those types of things. So if you're offended by something I said, again, it's most likely because I meant to. So I just feel like I don't really understand. And maybe this also is a limitation or this is a perspective that's more skewed because of my mental health condition. But I don't really understand when people say like, well, I didn't mean it like that. And, that's crazy that you took it that way. Like, I feel like that's very gaslighty. Be conscious and be mindful of what you say and how you say it, and check in, right? Hey, did that come out wrong? Did you get what I meant? And I think that that's especially important as a medical professional. Hold up, let me make sure I'm actually even recording. Okay, I am. I have to make sure I'm dropping gems, and I want to make sure y'all can hear me. But I think that's such a crucial skill as a medical professional. If you don't know how to just check in with your patients and be like, hey, like, are you keeping up with me? Like, do I need to go back and say something? Like, how are you feeling at this moment with everything that I said? Do you understand? Repeat it back to me. That's active listening skills. That's actively good communication skills. And you would just think that people would know those things. But for whatever reason, when it comes to personal relationships, people can really take advantage of you and take advantage of that bond that you have. Like, oh, we're friends, so I didn't mean it like that. No, I don't, because you're still a separate individual. I'm not you. I have no idea how you meant that. So if I'm offended by something, I'm offended by something, and I'm going to tell you that. I also kind of struggle to understand when people tell me that they didn't know how to tell me something, right? Like something bothers them, but they don't tell me about it. Which I dislike because, again, I always create space and opportunity to correct me. Like, please tell me if I'm wrong. Like, tell me how you're feeling about this. So when you don't take advantage of those moments when I say, hey, tell me what's going on, and I'm thinking everything is fine, I kind of feel that's a slap in the face, because it's like you had plenty of room and opportunity to address this and to like kind of nip this in the bud, and you didn't take it. So then now I'm thinking everything is fine, and like you've essentially been lying to me. I'm learning to extend grace in that area, because I get that everybody is not as vocal with their emotions and that it does take people some time and things like that. So I try not to get personally offended anymore. However, I also think that it's equally fair that that person understands that they are running the risk of just no longer being in my life. I am very, very careful of who I allow my energy to be spent on, because again, I have a mental health condition. Like, this is stuff that I have to be constantly aware of and, like, you know, being mindful of just for myself, for my own health and safety. So yeah, I think I am just more of a person who's like, all right, like, this is a potential. So my bad, I kind of strayed from the original point of like what mental health is and like how you should be aware of like how people express mental health, and like how dare you tell them that the reaction is wrong. So I think it's also important to say that mental health is not always just reactionary. I think a lot of people believe that you know, for instance, people with mental health conditions, it's because they can't like control themselves and they can't like control their expressions, and they have outbursts and they have episodes, right? That's very, very reactive. But mental health is also just reflective. It can be very, very, I don't want to, not the word stable, but it can be like habitual. So I know that you guys see that I talk a lot about spending my time in the gym and like how much the gym just brings me peace. And I just mentioned earlier that going to the gym is a form of like mental health balance. So, you know, just kind of knowing and understanding what your baseline is like, right? There is no universal baseline, but knowing what you are normally like is important. And then being able to analyze and be honest with yourself and saying, you know what, that maybe isn't healthy, right? Like, this maybe isn't good. So a prime example of that I can think of is people who say that they're naturally pessimistic, right? I'm just a realist. I think of all of the possibilities, including the negative ones. That's not necessarily a good thing. Same way on the other extreme, people who are super, super optimists. I think it's just important to, as I said, have just personal accountability of like where you are in your mental health register and what that means for your life, right? If you're a naturally pessimistic person, like what does that potentially do to your ability to look forward to opportunities? What does that potentially do to your relationships? Same thing with like being an optimist. How many times are you walking into situations where you're being taken advantage of because you're always seeing the good in people? And I think that these types of daily reflection type of definition on mental health is what we see as it's kind of what you see on TV, right? What you see on TV, what you see on social media. Like, this is actually the one that people talk about the most, but don't necessarily phrase it as a form of mental health awareness, which I think is pretty funny. Like, you'll follow 30,000 motivational quote pages. You'll listen to 30,000 podcasts about, you know, not being stuck in the hamster wheel and taking back your power. And you'll have books. I have books, right? Like a book called Boundaries. You'll do all of these things without putting it into the context of this is mental health, right? And I just kind of challenge you to think about that, and just have better awareness, as I said, because if you are a person that is consistently needing these types of outside resources to like function, that may be an indication that you're having a mental health imbalance. Just saying. And I'm saying the word imbalance a lot, and I use that word because I think there is a fine balance between positive and negative emotions. Not even necessarily on a actual brain physiology scale, because there are conditions in which you have certain levels that are imbalanced, such as major depressive disorder, right? Everybody knows like serotonin and SSRIs, and you know that's like pretty common if you're familiar with psychological terms. And that is true that there is such a thing as imbalances of the brain, but I'm talking about more so imbalances of, as I said, your daily emotions. Knowing whether or not you are more negative than usual or thinking more negative thoughts than usual, whether or not thoughts are sticking longer in your head than usual, which is called rumination. So you're constantly replaying events over and over and over in your head and like making yourself feel bad about them. That's what I mean by imbalance. So yeah, just having that awareness of like what your baseline is a form of mental health care. Another thing that I can think in terms of mental health care is like It's self-love. Mental health is self-love because your mind is you, right? You only have one brain. You only have one heart. Not saying that the organs that come into aren't important. I'm just saying that there are just a few organs that, without those, you're going to probably go kaput. And, the brain is one of them. So it's like getting really familiar with your mind, is important. Understanding it and just spending time, as I said, with your mind is important and is a form of self-love. So the next time that you go and take a bubble bath, just maybe take some time to reflect. I'm not going to suggest journaling because I don't be journaling like that. I'm supposed to, but I don't be doing it. So, but at least, as I said, just take some time. I keep saying, as I said, my bad. But taking some time, maybe when you're taking a bubble bath, to just reflect and consciously think about, like, how have I been this week? How have I been today? How have I been for the past 24 hours? How have I been for the past 48 hours during your moments of downtime and self-care? And I just think that goes miles. I do. And I just think that you're going to feel much better for it. And because it is a form of self-love. I'm trying to think. I'm low-key feeling like I'm covering everything that I wanted to cover more quickly than I thought I would, which is nice. Which is nice. So matter of fact, I think I could kind of just wrap up this video, especially because this is just the introductory video. And I just want to say that the things that you can look forward to in this series is me being very open and transparent. I think that I'm pretty open and transparent no matter what on this channel, but mental health conditions are, as I said, they're so stigmatized and it's always something that is kind of like, well, are people going to judge me and how is this going to reflect? But y'all, I personally don't care, right? Like, I know that I'm fit to pursue this career. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have succeeded in all of the ways that I have thus far. And I just think that we need more people to kind of flip this narrative, right? Like, what is better and more empowering than seeing somebody who's honest about their struggles, right? Seeing somebody that's able to say, yeah, I have this condition and I'm still making it happen. Like, I'm still a great and fantastic, student doctor, right? Medical professional in training. So I hope that more and more people become comfortable sharing these things before it's too late. I feel like people always share this type of stuff when it like hits the fan, right? When they're now like medicated, which is another topic I'll talk about. But when it like hits the fan and they get to their breaking point, now they want to share it. And I just don't think that that's a healthy method. It shouldn't always be the burnout that's shown, right? I think that we need to do a better job as a society in kind of showing the process and like how to manage in the meantime, in the current, not like retrospectively or now that it's already happened to me, but just kind of like, no, like this is what I'm doing, like preventative medicine almost. So yeah, I hope that by me sharing my personal, this very, very personal side of myself, it does something. As I said, I do hope that you guys drop a comment below and anything that I've said in this video thus far that has just stuck with you or that's something that you haven't even thought about. And I hope that there are genuine takeaways from conversations like this. In my future uploads, I will be sharing, as I said, the diagnostic process, why I got diagnosed, what my diagnosis is, all of the stigma surrounding, getting diagnosed and all of that kind of talk. I think another video will be on my actual routine. So what I do on a daily and weekly basis to keep myself calm. Another video is certainly going to be on some of my social struggles that I have and how I think it relates to my mental health condition, because another thing that I really, really want to highlight throughout my videos is that my mental health condition is not debilitating. Right? Like you wouldn't even know that I had one maybe until you interacted with me in a certain way. And the reason why I'm so open about it and saying how it affects my social relationships is because like I know it does, but I also have to be very careful and balanced, not giving too much power to my mental health condition, because it's not me, it's just a part of me. So I do want to have a video just kind of on the social dynamics of how that has been for me, and then really talk about how I've protected my peace thus far, and then shouting out my friends who have known me when my mental health condition wasn't the most stable and are still my friends to this day. And yeah, just maybe also do an encouragement video for anybody that's struggling out there with their mental health condition and maybe doesn't even want to admit that they have one and can't really like say it out loud. I don't know. Like I have a whole bunch of ideas going on in my head about what this playlist can really form and shape to be. And yeah, ultimately my goal is to continue just creating a safe space, a vulnerable space, a transparent space. That's why my video was called Z Chats, because I really do want it to be like you're having a conversation with your friendly local neighborhood med student. Insert picture of Spider-Man. So yeah, I think that's it for now. As I said, please do let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you guys so much for all of the love so far, the likes, the comments, the shares, the subscriptions, whatever you guys do for my channel, whatever form of support, it definitely means a lot. As like a small YouTuber, right? I only have about like 400 something subscribers, and all of you guys matter to me. All of you guys are important to me. Even the viewers who aren't subscribed to me, you clicked on my video and you watched, and that was support. So I thank you guys very, very much every single time. And I think that's it. Love you guys the most. Adios.